Hi, I'm Fred Satilli. I'm going to read Chapter 6 of Hotsy Feminazi, Health Issues. Sometime to understand why certain decisions are made, you have to be aware of the health of the decision makers. Many decisions in life are based on a complicated series of circumstances. One of these could easily be your health, the health of your loved ones, or other physical conditions. Early in my adulthood, there were three things that I had to deal with. The first was allergic rhinitis, hay fever. This plagued me from childhood. In the fall, when school starts, you have a get-up-and-go attitude. But if you have hay fever, you become uncomfortable and distracted by a constant runny nose and relentless sneezing jags. You fall behind, but you know that you can easily catch up over the winter, and you do. When spring hits, allergies hit again. You become delirious, exhausted, and fall asleep on your desk. The introduction of the antihistamines from that era only added to the problems. You ended up with a bad scholastic record for the year and a bad school experience for yourself. At about age 30, I went to an allergy specialist. I had Blue Cross at the time, but allergies were not covered back then. I unbegrudgingly paid out of pocket for my own treatment. The doctor was effective in helping me to minimize my symptoms by giving me an injection in each arm every month for 6 years. During the 7th year, I was listening to Dr. Dean Adele on talk radio on the way to my appointment. He said that all the benefits of the shots would be realized after 6 years. And to continue the shots after 6 years was pointless. When I spoke to the doctor about what I had heard on the radio, he agreed with Dean Adele. I told him that I was in my 7th year. He checked my folder and said, "Hey, you're right. Well, your shots are finished. You can just go ahead and leave, and thank you. Goodbye." On a fun note here, one of my silly phobic projections has always been that I'll die from medical malpractice. You can just imagine how I feel about Obamacare. If you think an apocalypse is funny and enjoy cynicism, we can share an ironic laugh. In my mind, my death by careless bureaucracy is sealed, just as I had always predicted. Now, back to reality. The next problem was really a bad one, migraine. Not everyone understands migraine, and it also took me many years to understand the nature of this often misunderstood malady. The symptoms of my migraine attack would be headaches that were so severe that you couldn't sleep, and intense vomiting, sometimes every hour for 2 days. Eating and sleeping during these attacks was impossible. So even when the attack was over, I needed another 8 hours to eat, sleep, and rehydrate. Another aspect of these weekly or sometimes bi-weekly episodes was the fear of the warning signs of the coming attack. Strict routine to eating, schedule and diet, and sleep were key disciplines to minimize migraine occurrences. When these routines were interrupted, the threat of a migraine following was terrifying. My typical 70-hour work week was often done in marathon style. If I felt the first twinge of a migraine and ate something very gentle, a carbohydrate, and could nap for an hour or more, I might be able to beat it. If I felt the first twinge and was just about to paint a UPS truck that had to be painted, stripped of masking, and delivered to the very stall where it would be loaded with packages that very night for delivery the following day, I would be guaranteed to be throwing up before I left the shop. If in my enthusiasm to work I ignored the first twinge, when I got the second sign, I knew the migraine was coming and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I would work as hard as I could with the growing headache until the vomiting started, and then went home. At home, I knew that my income was on hold. Not good. I would go home immediately, throw up the vomit I had been holding back on the drive. There were times when I couldn't make it and would pull over. When I got home, I would immediately charge past my family to the bathroom, which I prayed was unoccupied. I would retch violently, come out of the bathroom with a horrible flushed face with purple circles under my eyes from broken blood vessels, say, "Daddy is sick," go to my bedroom and close the door. My children saw me come home like this 100 times. Finally, in despair, I went to a neurologist. The doctor had an immediate and thorough understanding of my condition and told me all about it. He prescribed 3 medications. The first was a pill that, taken every day, would prophylactically raise my migraine threshold by controlling the blood pressure in my brain. This daily pill reduced the frequency of occurrences to about once every 2 months, which was an incredible relief. When the attack was severe enough to make it through the first medication, I would take the other 2. The first was to reduce the headache, and the second one's to stop the vomiting. I could actually work through the attack, which was great because my income was dependent on completion of my work. My job as an auto body repairman put me in a very toxic environment. Even while not having a headache, I often had heartburn. I would gently throw up in my throat and swallow the burning juices back down. During this time, I remember drinking a great deal of hot chocolate even in summer. This was not like migraine vomiting, it was more like baby throw up. It was what I called an acid burp. Alcohol and spicy foods were literally out of the question for me. My friend Johnny Stevens and I were buying Gaviscon antacid in a discount store and were making it a regular part of our daily routine. I knew that I had gastroesophageal reflux disorder, GERD, but as long as I sucked in Bondo dust and welding smoke 70 hours a week, I just thought I always would. Corrosive acids were slowly dissolving my throat. I knew I couldn't do it forever. Rocking out auto body repair at the rate I did was a very physically demanding job. After a while, the repetitive acts of sanding, pulling heavy chains, swinging hammers, and especially slowly and steadily holding a paint gun at arm's length became acutely painful. I had worn out my right shoulder rotator cuff. Even 16 years later, now, throwing a football, baseball, swinging a tennis racket, and even some weightlifting motions are instantly painful. I try to avoid context rotating motions. The physical toll auto body repair was taking on me put the writing on the wall. It would be impossible to continue much longer. To presume to write about the medical conditions of my wife would be irresponsible at best. When asked, "How are you?" she would always respond with her one-word answer, "Fine." The very private Stacy may not have wished to communicate with me, but after a while, you come to resent your wife's inability to share herself with you. After years of "fine," you stop asking. After years of attempts to offer concern and being turned away cold, you accept the fact that your offers are not welcome. My wife had 7 children by surgical delivery. I don't know what that does to a person. I do know that she welcomed each one and wanted more. Knowing that our marriage was on the rocks and that our responsibilities were at our absolute limit, she wanted more. If 7 children weren't enough, would 8 be? Would 9? 10? I do know that something happened to Stacy with the birth of our children. She changed. The girl that swore that she didn't want children when we married became obsessed with pregnancy. I don't remember exactly when, but for over a decade, the woman took her temperature every morning without fail. She knew her time of the month better than the time of day. After the birth of our first child, there was no longer a relationship of love between my wife and me. I really did love the girl. I knew that she didn't love me. I know that love is perhaps a bit different for each person, but that is not a factor here. I saw my wife love someone. I saw her expression of love. That expression had never been for me. I really could say it. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know that anybody did. My wife made it clear to me what she felt was my place in our family. She made it clear that the children satisfied her completely. She demanded that they satisfy me in the same way. There was no room for anything else. Anything other than satisfaction through the children was looked upon by her with extreme disdain and contempt. My hopes, dreams, and personality were to be completely denied by both of us. There is another thing. I have attended the Los Angeles County Council on Domestic Violence for over 4 years at this point. And at one of the meetings of the council, I met a very wise woman attorney from the Los Angeles County Public Defender's Office who gave a talk on the mental condition of women after childbirth. It's sad that postpartum depression is misunderstood and the butt of jokes. I am not a medical authority, as my friend the lawyer is. She lived through a perinatal crisis of her own and became an advocate for understanding the changes that can come to a woman after childbirth. I do not pretend to be an authority on what happened to my wife, but I am not oblivious to what happened right before my own eyes. My wife became obsessed with either pregnancy or childbirth. There was nothing else in her life. I will not irresponsibly speculate on what happened to Stacy, but something did. With or without me there, just imagine the family with 5 more kids. Does that seem totally rational to you? Is a family with no love shared between the parents and no realistic means of financial independence your goal? How would you evaluate a person who finds this scenario to be reasonable? Okay, thank you for listening. That was a little bit about my own health issues and perhaps speculatively the health issues of my ex-wife. Thanks for listening. I'll be back again soon with Chapter 7.